Yeah, and we've made quite a lot of stuff together, haven't we, in the past?
Before we did this, yeah. We've made furniture together.
Yeah, but it's our first build. You know, I do a lot of these builds for other people in a kind of professional context, but this is the first time. You know, we've been renting for years and years, so buying this house was our first house that we've owned and been able to do something ourselves. And it's really stressful, isn't it? And it's kind of like emotionally stressful when it's your own thing.
When we first moved here, I thought it was all going to be done in 6 months. And you were like, yeah, it will be. And I was like, okay. And then when it wasn't, I was like, what have you put in for the planning permission yet, Thomas?
Yeah, and it's what now, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
But we're getting there.
We're getting there.
So this came up and it was a kind of a reasonable price. And I think one of the things when we came around is we went up into the attic and we saw that there was real potential to convert the attic. And that could be done at a very simple level of just basically doing a very basic attic conversion, and you could almost have like Velux skylights or dormer windows. And that would be the low cost kind of way of extending it, or we could do something much bigger, which is what we've ended up doing.
I mean, it still feels quite open-ended, this project, doesn't it? Because we still don't know how far the budget's going to stretch and what we're going to be able to achieve.
Yeah.
Whether the downstairs will be able to be renovated much or just a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think partly if we certainly don't have the budget to do it if we were doing everything from scratch and buying everything new. And
like what, trying to cut the costs on certain items and buying them second hand?
Yeah, well, we got a quote for the windows. So they're the windows, very specific window, they're called Velfac. And we got a quote for somewhere around 35,000 for all the windows.
That was 22 windows, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For the whole house.
So it's a lot of windows.
To replace all the windows at the back as well.
Yeah. And then you started having a look on eBay.
Having always been an avid eBayer, yeah, I was like, well, let's see if we can get these windows second hand.
Yeah. And well, we found some quite early on, but they weren't the right size, were they?
Yeah, no, and there was that kind of pivotal moment where I found that one around the back that was free, and it was in Bath. So there were two things that was good about it. It was near, and it was very cheap, or as in free. So yeah, you were like, go for it, go on, just say to the man that you want it, you've got nothing to lose. So I jumped in the car, kind of measured the back of the car to see if it would fit, jumped in the car, drove to somewhere in Bath. The window fitted within like millimetres of the boot, and I had to push the front seat right up, so I was driving home like that. And yeah, we got the window back, and it was right, and it all worked right. And then so after
and remarkably, it was kind of just the right size, wasn't it?
And it opened outward and to the right, because obviously with doors you've got to check if there's obviously 4 potential ways it can open. So yeah, it was quite amazing. And then from there we were like, oh my god, a whole world of second-hand materials opened up.
Yeah, and so then it's probably been about a year or two now, hasn't it? That 2 years of kind of on eBay, because obviously a lot of the windows in the house are kind of the size is already fixed. They're the kind of existing windows. Some of them are new, but a lot of them are kind of existing openings. So we had to wait until the right sizes
came up.
Yeah.
No, it's been a really exciting process, and I really enjoyed the kind of journey, but the memory behind each item that I've bought. Like I can now look at each window and think, oh, I went to a farm in Lincolnshire in the middle of nowhere to pick that window up, and it was raining and really dark. So yeah, each thing has got a story behind it, which I really like.
And it's interesting because those windows can be between sort of £1,000, £2,000.
Yes.
And on eBay or Facebook, they're often kind of 100, 200, 300.
Well, I'm really choosy about, like, I don't get in the car if something's over £100 generally. But I do have like a whole kind of way, like it's got to be within a radius of about 100 miles, each item, because I've got to get in the car, go and get it and be back for pick-up time to get the kids from school at 3 o'clock. So yeah, I have this, but also I don't think it's worth driving like really far to get stuff. So yeah, it's always got to be cheap and relatively near.
Yeah. But it's interesting to go and pick up, I mean, in some ways you'd think going to pick up one window is really inefficient. But actually when you look at the cost of it...
Yeah, so I mean, what do you think we've saved?
So we ended up getting a quote for the remaining windows after we'd bought,
about 18.
Yeah, about 18 second hand, and the remaining ones were about 10,000 for the remaining windows. So saved somewhere around kind of 25,000 on buying the windows, which is incredible, really. And I think once we realised that we were able to do that, it really gave us the confidence to kind of, because we were making savings on things like that, and we've also done that with sanitary ware.
A boiler, we bought a really cheap boiler, didn't we?
Yeah. Recycling the solar panels on the roof, moving them to another roof, and so we started to realise that this was going to be totally possible.
And it became like my job, like over a period of 2 years. That was my job, and I spent a lot of time. Like I would not just eBay, like all the other secondhand online places.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was what I did. Kind of stopped now. I don't look at windows anymore.
But then also you started doing some of the work on the house yourself, didn't you? And and again we realised that was totally feasible. Partly because you've been doing a lot of the work up in the attic, and you can kind of go up through the attic hatch, do the work, and then you can, just before school pickup, just drop all the tools and climb down the hatch, leave everything as it is.
Yeah, shut the door and leave it so the kids can't.
Yeah, so there's no packing up and things at the end of each day. And
it worked really well.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been, like I've ended up doing some of the unpleasant jobs, like the insulation.
Yeah.
But we've definitely saved money doing that as well, haven't we? Like through me doing some of the less skilled and time-consuming jobs.
Yeah.
And it fits in with the kids really well, so I can spend 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the day and then go and pick them up afterwards.
Yeah. It's been quite empowering, hasn't it?
Yeah, totally. Also, I've learnt loads, and I really enjoyed learning how to use different tools and how a building works. I didn't understand that at all beforehand. I think I understand that a bit better now, for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of YouTubing.
Yeah, watching YouTubers and how to do insulation. I mean, you can tell me a lot of the time, but it's quite nice to watch.
So I did a lot of building work in about 2003. When we left university, we started actually making what we designed. But we actually used the Collins DIY manual. That actually kind of...
There wasn't YouTube back then, not really.
No, well, YouTube's kind of replaced the Collins DIY
right.
manual. Although actually the Collins DIY manual is better for certain things. If there's one specific bit of knowledge, sometimes it's easier to find in the DIY manual than on YouTube. But but I think between those things, it's that you can really learn how to put stuff together.
Just going back to talking about second-hand materials, do you think we could have done more?
We haven't had any skips. Have we? So there hasn't been much that's gone off site, and we haven't got to that stage yet, but we're going to be cutting the rafters off the roof, and we're hoping to reuse those for part of the kind of rebuilding the garage. We also had to knock down the boiler was in an outside boiler room that was built with block work, and we knocked that down. And we've actually, and the chimney stack, and we've reused those blocks in the foundations, which we had to kind of pass by the building control officer.
But the majority of our house is being built with timbers. I mean, I don't think you could do that second hand.
Yeah, well, we might do the internal walls using the old timbers in the attic. I think one of the problems at the moment is the timbers that we're using for a new build at the moment are all much bigger than the timbers we've currently got in the house. But when it comes to the internal walls, they're actually the same size, so we could
reuse what we
could reuse those. Yeah.
But I do think there is some limit to. I mean, it depends what you're doing. You know, you see these amazing houses that apparently have been completely built of second-hand materials and found windows from skips and all sorts. I don't think we would have quite gone down that route.
Well, that's the other interesting thing is, say with the windows, they're triple glazed, and sometimes we didn't manage to find the triple glazed windows on eBay, so they'd be double glazed. But actually, when we did the research, the overall carbon saving that you'd make over its lifetime from having triple glaze rather than double glaze, actually the fact that you're reusing the existing windows, and so there's not you're not creating a new window and new embodied carbon, means that
it cancels out
it
the
kind of
glaze,
yeah. So actually it's better to reuse a double glazed window than put a triple glazed window in if you're just counting the kind of cost of the carbon. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, which has been interesting. So yeah, you know, as we said at the beginning, we wanted to do a new build initially, and then bought a bungalow and then started looking at what we could do with it. But it's actually much better to for the environment to renovate an existing house than build a new one. And so it wasn't the motivation for doing what we've done, but actually it feels quite good to not be knocking something down.
I think it's become more important as we've gone along, and we've found out about certain materials being really unenvironmentally friendly, like the traditional Celotex insulation, and then coupled with the fact that it's horrible to work with, we decided to stop using that and use a more environmentally friendly insulation. So yeah, I think it's changed as we've gone along. And for me, it's important, the environmental side of it.
I think there's also something when you buy a second-hand window. And a lot of these windows aren't actually second-hand. They've actually never been installed. They were just the wrong size or something. So you put this window in, and it's meant to be second-hand, and you'd think that was a kind of somehow a lesser. It was degraded in some way, but actually you fit it in and it feels new. Yeah. And you think, why on earth would you, if this is available, why on earth would you buy a new one?
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think, how could it be scaled up and how could more people do this way of building? I don't think there's a simple way of getting hold of second-hand materials. That's the only problem. I think it's always going to be like squirreling them out from wherever they are. But in a way that's good, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and then they wouldn't be cheap. So yeah.
I think the other thing we found that was, in order to find stuff, like say if you just put in onto eBay windows, then you'll get loads of windows and they'll be all varying quality, and it'll be really difficult to search through, and a lot of kind of PVC things. Whereas if you put in the brand, that really narrows it down.
It's the lesson that I took from buying clothes on eBay, where you put in the brand that you want or the quality. So you put wool jumper, so you will only get nice quality jumpers. It's the same with the window. You put in triple glaze and you get all the good quality ones coming up, or Velfat, which is a brand that you particularly recommended.
Yeah.
Or composite, yeah. So it requires you to know what you're searching for, that's for sure. You need a lot of time, and you need somewhere to store stuff and you need a vehicle to get stuff. I mean, we never had a van, so everything's gone in the back of our 7-seater.
No, we did hire
we once hired a van, but the problem with hiring a van is then it's not any longer a cheap item, because you're paying for the van and the removals. So mostly, unless if something's really close by, you could hire a van. But mostly we've managed to cram things in the back of our 7-seater, or even on the roof, or with the boot half open.
Thing is, we've got rid of a lot of materials, haven't we,
That's
to other homes.
Thing, yeah.
So we had a conservatory that we took down, and actually the person who wanted the conservatory, part of the deal was that they took it down, which was actually quite a lot of work in the end. So it saved
6 weeks, yeah. So that saved us time in demolition, didn't it?
Yeah. And then some of our windows have gone to a friend, and they're already kind of in their extension now, I think.
It's nice to feel that you're not skipping stuff. I mean, that conservatory was perfectly good. It was built in the late 1990s. It was only 25 years old, that conservatory. It did feel kind of wrong to be getting rid of it, but it just didn't work with what we wanted to do.
Yeah. But again, we needed the time, didn't we, for it to match with the person who was taking it down, and they took a lot longer than we'd hoped. And if we'd had a builders or a deadline waiting on that, it would have been a real problem, wouldn't it?
The way builders tend to work is they get all the materials at once, and then they get rid of things all at once. So everything's on a kind of time pressure. So you tend to just skip things or buy things in bulk in the less economic way. So yeah, I think if you're self-building over a longer period of time, you can take advantage of that for sure.
Yeah, well, you've got, what's that phrase that you've got, time's your friend?
Time's my friend. Well, or doing something fast costs you money, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah.
But that took me a long time to get used to that idea.